Half the American RV industry just vanished. Nearly 600,000 sold at the peak. This year, barely 300,000. And in the middle of the wreckage sits the most famous name of them all, Winnebago, the company so iconic its name became the word. Like Kleenex, like Xerox. It just slashed its own profit forecast by a third, watched its biggest business collapse 26% in a single quarter, and Wall Street is downgrading it by the week. So how does the company that built the American road trip end up here? The answer is bigger than one bad year. The little Iowa company that sold freedom. Let's rewind, because you can't understand where Winnebago is today without knowing what it built, and this is genuinely one of the great American stories. The town is Forest City, Iowa. Population small enough that everybody knows everybody. And in 1958, that's where a group of locals started bolting together trailers to bring a few jobs to a town that badly needed them. Back then, a motorhome was a plaything for the wealthy, hand-built in tiny workshops, one at a time, at prices an ordinary family would laugh at. The man who took over Winnebago, John K. Hansen, looked at all that and had a heretical thought. What if you built them like Henry Ford built cars? On a line. In volume, cheap enough that a school teacher or a plumber could load up the kids and just go. That idea didn't just sell RVs, it sold a feeling. The open highway, no reservations, no schedule, the whole country out your windshield, and it caught fire so completely that something rare happened to the brand. The word Winnebago stopped meaning one company's product and started meaning the entire product. To this day, people point at a motorhome from any manufacturer on earth and call it a Winnebago. Very few brands in history ever pull that off. Winnebago did it selling a dream on wheels to the American middle class. Over the decades, the company grew into something much bigger than that single brand. It gathered up Grand Design, Newmar, Chris-Craft, and Barletta. Trailers, luxury coaches, and, worth remembering for later, boats. Power boats and pontoons, a whole separate business floating alongside the RVs. Keep that detail in the back of your mind, because it matters near the end. And through all of it, Winnebago learned the brutal rhythm of this peculiar industry. An RV is the ultimate thing nobody actually needs. So when gas is cheap and folks feel secure, sales soar, and the second money gets tight, or people get scared about their jobs, the whole thing falls off a table. Winnebago surfed the boom of the 60s, nearly drowned in the gas crises of the 70s, and got battered in the 2008 crash that shuttered dealers across the industry. Every time, the same shape. A glorious high, then a punishing low. Anybody who's spent a career in this business knows that movie by heart, which is why what happened next should have surprised no one, and yet somehow it did. The party nobody admitted was temporary. Here's the thing that set up everything you're about to hear. The last great high wasn't just big, it was a mirage, and the entire industry chose to believe it was real. Go back to 2020. The world locks down. Suddenly, a hotel feels like a petri dish, and an airplane feels like a gamble. But an RV? An RV is your own sealed bubble, your own bed, your own bathroom, rolling wherever you want, away from all the people you're trying to avoid. So Americans bought them like they'd never buy anything again. Stimulus checks and canceled vacation money went straight into down payments. In 2021, the industry moved close to 600,000 units, the biggest year it had ever recorded. Dealers couldn't keep lots stocked. Waiting lists stretched for months. It felt like the whole nation had fallen in love with the open road at once. And that's precisely where the trap sprang shut, though nobody felt it at the time, because every factory, every dealer, every executive made the same quiet bet. They assumed that flood of buyers was the new floor, not a one-time spike. So they built for it. They expanded plants. They hired. Dealers ordered rig after rig and packed their lots to the fences, confident it would all sell. But look closely at who those buyers actually were. An enormous share were rookies who'd never owned an RV in their lives and might never have wanted one if the world hadn't shut its doors. They weren't lifelong campers. They were pandemic escapees. And the instant cruises and airports reopened, huge numbers of them were finished. One trip, maybe two, and the thing went to live in the side yard. Those are the people now trying to unload a barely used rig on that fall lot I described at the top. So demand didn't gently taper. It snapped back to where it had always been, and then some, because now the market was also flooded with all those lightly used pandemic RVs competing against the new ones. And an industry that had swollen to feed a crowd that was never coming back was suddenly far too big for the customers who actually remained. That mismatch, that one miscalculation about human nature, is the seed of every ugly number we're about to get into. The quarter the music stopped. Fast forward to late June 2026, when Winnebago opened its books on the 3 months ending May 30th, and the report read like a hangover. Revenue slid nearly 10%, down to $698 million. Profit for the whole quarter came to just $14.5 million. For a company that runs billions through its doors every year, that's a sliver, the kind of margin that makes a boardroom go very quiet. Earnings per share dropped more than 18% against the same stretch a year earlier. Then came the moment that truly spooked investors. Winnebago tore up its own forecast for the year. It had told Wall Street to expect earnings somewhere between $1.50 and $2.20 a share. It yanked that down to $1.05 to $1.40, roughly a third gone off the bottom. And in the same breath, management warned the quarter still to come would be uglier yet, down double digits. When a company publicly lowers its own expectations by that much, it's essentially raising its hand and admitting the year is getting away from it. CEO Michael Hopp named the culprits plainly. Fuel costs, biting. Global jitters, spreading. And a public that just doesn't feel secure enough to sign for something this big. Because an RV can cost as much as a down payment on a house, and financing one now means a loan around 8.5%. Stack a scary sticker price on a scary interest rate on a nervous customer, and people simply stop coming through the door. But the report hid something more troubling than a soft quarter, and you had to dig into the segments to find it. The crack under the floorboards. Winnebago's business isn't one thing, it's split into pieces, and the biggest piece, the workhorse that pulls the most weight, is towables. Travel trailers and fifth wheels, the ones you hitch behind a pickup. That's the volume, the everyday bread on the table. And that segment didn't soften, it buckled. Towable revenue fell 26% in a single quarter. Better than a quarter of the whole thing, wiped away against the year before. The profit inside it did worse, dropping 46%, close to sliced in half. Now, a shrinking market hurts everybody, and if towables were merely sinking with the tide, you could shrug it off as bad weather that'll pass. But this is where it stops being weather, because analysts started pointing out that Winnebago isn't just going down with the industry in towables. It's losing ground inside it. Its share of that category is slipping, which means rivals are actually peeling away customers at the precise moment there are fewer customers to fight over. Sinking alongside everyone is a cycle. Sinking faster than everyone in your biggest and most important category is a signal. And it's the kind of signal that keeps executives awake, because it hints the trouble isn't only out there in the economy. Some of it is in here, in the product, in the pricing, in decisions the company made itself. Wall Street loses its nerve. And once the professionals smelled that, the mood turned cold in a hurry. The analysts who follow this stock for a living didn't wait around. Citigroup pulled its buy rating and knocked its price target from $46 to $30. Truist chopped its target from $43 to $35. Another shop cut from $48 to $38. One well-known rating service went all the way to an outright sell. The share price had already shed something on the order of 36 to 40% from its highs, and each fresh downgrade shoved it lower still. Now hold on, because if you're finding this useful, do me a quick favor and tap that subscribe button and ring the bell. It honestly makes a difference to a channel like this. All right, here's the number that genuinely raised eyebrows. Winnebago sends its shareholders a dividend every quarter, a cash payment, and it had proudly grown that payment year after year as a badge of health. But with profit falling this steeply, the arithmetic went sideways. The company's payout ratio climbed above 100%. Say that slowly. Winnebago is now handing out more in dividends than it's actually earning. You can do that for a spell by reaching into the savings jar, but it is not a thing that lasts. Sooner or later, either the jar runs dry or the dividend gets trimmed, and trimming a dividend is a flare a company really doesn't want to send up because it tells every investor watching that the cushion is gone. That single ratio is how a rough quarter curdles into a question about the company's footing. The whole neighborhood is burning. Here's the part that widens the lens, though, and it matters, because Winnebago is not alone out on this ledge. The entire American RV world is in the same ditch at the same moment. Thor Industries, the largest RV maker anywhere on the planet, watched its own profit fall better than 30% in a recent quarter. Forest River, another heavyweight, has been idling workers and trimming shifts across its plants. And here's one that should worry anybody who actually owns a rig. Norcold, a major supplier that a big slice of the industry leans on for its refrigerators, went bankrupt in 2025. When a key parts maker collapses, it leaves a hole in the repair and build chain that everybody downstream eventually feels. And then there are the owners, where the pandemic party sends its final, cruelest bill. The folks who bought at the very top in 2021, paying peak money, are now watching resale values sink back to where they sat before the boom ever started. Which means a lot of them owe more on the loan than the rig is worth. Upside down, stranded, the same negative equity quicksand that's been swallowing car buyers. And with financing near 8.5%, anybody eyeing a new one is staring down a monthly payment that feels absurd for something you drive twice a summer. That's the whole grim tableau. Demand halved from the peak, the giants furloughing, a supplier gone under, owners underwater. Everyone in the industry doing the sensible thing, which is hunkering down and waiting for the storm to pass. Everyone, that is, except Winnebago. Because Winnebago looked at that exact landscape and did something that made the whole industry blink. It stepped on the accelerator. Right in the teeth of all this, it rolled out brand new machines. A rugged, go-anywhere, off-grid adventure truck called the Arca, aimed dead at the hardcore overlanders, the obsessive buyers who keep shopping even when the sky is falling. And a stripped-down, easy-to-live-with compact motorhome called the Allura, built for the anxious first-timer, wearing a price tag north of $150,000. Two fresh products, two totally different buyers, launched inside about 6 weeks at the very moment the company was slashing its own forecast and its rivals were handing out layoff notices. Which lands us on the question this entire saga turns on. Is that the move of a company that's lost its mind, spending big on new metal precisely when demand is thinnest and a flop would hurt most? Or is it the coldest, smartest play on the board? Because there's an old truth in this business that the veterans will tell you. The downturns, not the booms, are when the deck gets reshuffled. When everybody's flush, everyone sells. It's when the market goes cold that loyalties get won, and the brands still putting out desirable product while their competitors go dark are the ones who walk out of the recession bigger than they walked in. Winnebago is wagering the house that that old truth still holds. Same movie, familiar ending. So circle all the way back to that used lot in the fall, the slashed prices, the empty aisles. Now you know how it got that way. It wasn't one villain or one blunder. It was a whole industry, Winnebago included, mistaking a once-in-a-lifetime panic-buying spree for a permanent new reality and building itself twice as big as the customer base that was actually going to stick around. Everything downstream, the vanishing profit, the crumbling towables, the nervous analysts, the underwater owners, all of it flows from that one wrong read on how long the good times would run. And here's what a seasoned RV hand would tell you from the tailgate. None of this is new. This industry has boomed and busted since the day it was born because it lives or dies on whether regular people feel free enough and flush enough to buy a thing they don't need. The names change and the numbers get bigger, but the shape never does. What's different this time is only the size of the boom that came before, which sets the size of the correction that follows. Let me be straight with you, though, because it matters. This is not a company circling the drain. Winnebago is still profitable. It still has real money in the bank and a sturdy balance sheet under it. Its motorhome division is actually the bright spot right now, growing and rebuilding margins even while the towable side bleeds. And remember those boats I told you to hold on to? Powerboats don't always sink on the same tide as RVs, and that second business gives Winnebago a shock absorber the pure play RV makers just don't have. This isn't a death watch. It's a proud, sturdy company taking the hardest gut punch its industry has thrown since 2008 and choosing to swing back instead of duck. But don't soften what actually happened here. The name that built the American road trip, the brand so beloved it became the word, just carved a third off its own profit outlook, watched its biggest business cave in, and lost the faith of Wall Street, all while the ground under the whole industry gave way. The days when that badge alone was enough, when the highway practically sold the rig for you, those days are on hold. In their place is a company scrapping through a downturn with a bold, expensive bet, gambling that nerve beats caution when the market goes dark. And that's the real story hiding behind the Winnebago headlines. Not some sudden cinematic collapse, but a whole industry letting the air out after a boom that was never built to hold, with its most storied name standing right at the center of the deflation. If there's a takeaway worth carrying out of this one, it's that every boom feels like it'll last forever, right up until the morning it doesn't, and the reckoning always arrives after the party's over, never during. Not even a 60-year legend gets a pass on that. Now I genuinely want to know where you come down. Is Winnebago's swing for the fences move the smartest play in the room, the one that owns the next decade? Or is it the wrong bet at the worst possible time, pouring money out the door while the roof leaks? Or maybe you've actually owned one of these rigs and you see something the spreadsheets miss. Tell me down in the comments. I read them all, and more than a few episodes of this channel have grown straight out of something one of you wrote. If you got something out of this breakdown, a like helps it find more people, and hitting subscribe keeps you in the loop, because we are tracking every big tremor running through the car and RV world right now. Thanks for spending your time here with me. I'll catch you in the next one.